Oh my God, is this real life?
Or is this just a dream? Sonny, it's great to see you, buddy.
Oh my goodness, we're back, baby.
We're
Episode number 20. We took like
20
what, a 2 month? Was it 3 month hiatus?
summer break, effectively.
I like our backgrounds. I like how they're working together nicely. I like how you did that. That's good. Good. Cool. Okay, so how have
Yeah,
you
I feel
been?
like it's been like probably like 4 months since we were live. I don't think we've done this since I moved to Florida.
Okay. Okay. It
Yeah,
feels, yeah. I mean, a lot's happened since then, hasn't it?
it certainly has. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of get back into the groove a little bit and share some updates. And to anybody who's out there joining, welcome.
Mm. Yeah, and let's give people, well, I mean, right now we've got a total of 0 people signed in, but we should maybe give people a few seconds here. Let's see if people might roll in. But either way, we can keep going. This is going to be recorded and on our channels so people can access it later. We're streaming live on Rumble and Getter, and no, maybe not Getter, on Vimeo and LinkedIn, a whole bunch of platforms. So
And we got a lot to talk about too. What's our rough agenda to go over today, Sonny? Like
lots,
catching up. We got a lot.
it's
We got a
catching
lot
up.
to dig in.
Yeah, we could technically probably we could probably do like a 20-hour marathon today just because there's been so much. But we're gonna try and keep it under maybe an hour or two. We've got some episodes. We got a bunch of stuff we want to cover in this episode. So there's we're just gonna maybe remind people quickly about the loveandfreedomshow.com and the whole initiative there and what our goals are, and we can maybe start high level. But Pat King was released. I think our most popular episode ever was with Pat King, and he's recently been released on bail or something like that. So there's probably some digging in we could do there. You mentioned there's a trucker documentary coming out. Excited about that. I wanted to talk a little bit about Alex Berenson. He's been vindicated in the court of law. There's an episode with Joe Rogan yesterday where he talked about how he's now back on Twitter. He took them to court, and now he's on the next part of the mission, which is really interesting. So Andrew Tate, I think this guy, kind of took over the internet. I heard he was Googled more than Trump and the Kardashians combined last month, and so I don't know if a lot of people know about him or not, but he's been banned off the internet. So since we're always talking about things that we're not supposed to be talking about, let's talk about that. Alex Jones, the epitome of what we're not supposed to talk about, right? I think he had a $45 million fine. What does that mean? And then hopefully we can maybe dovetail into some Bitcoin topics as well, right? I had a bunch of things lined up, and maybe about your project. We could talk about Uno Coin as well and some other things as well. But I think the BlackRock thing was a big deal. And yeah, so I don't know, how does that sound as like a bit of an outline? And,
That sounds great, Sonny. That sounds
and
that a taste of what's coming up here, folks.
yeah, cool. And then we've got, live. It's 2:30 in Toronto. It looks like midnight, Sunny. Okay. We got some people already messaging us. So yeah, feel free to chime
Shell
in. And
George, way to go. We
yeah,
see you.
yeah, we're definitely not attached to any particular agenda. We want to do what people, find most interesting. And so let's get started, Kyle. So how do you want to start this off? Do you want to maybe just tell people a little bit about loveandfreedomshow.com, just because it's been a while. There might be some people that never seen us before, and I don't know what we're about, who we are.
Yeah, so I mean, like Sonny and I have been long friends since I don't know the early days of Bitcoin, helping organize a community in Toronto, and earlier this year we were both kind of frustrated with I guess the opposite of love and freedom, which is kind of like fear and control, and the fear and control show that we've been witnessing at a global level. So the one of my favorite lines is criticize by creating, and take action when you see something that's wrong. So we want to be a voice towards sharing our own perspectives on the world and what can be done. And one of the great challenges we have in this day and age is media and the overwhelming corruption, I would say, the coercion, the controlled nature of this is something that Joe Rogan and Alex Berenson were talking about, but it's like when uh 70% of advertising on cable network is funded by big pharma. They're generally going to keep their programming very positive towards big pharma. So just that's like important. I don't think a lot of people recognize that, and a lot of the news channels too, and the news telecasts are also kind of fun in that way. So the importance of independent voices and and using your voice and exploring and becoming open and you know, like I said, creating by criticizing and
Mm,
testing out new software and things. And if nothing else, like just getting to hang out with you, Sunny, and talk about things from an open, positive perspective and critical perspective. Whatever, just discussing things I think is important. Having open debate about things like we don't agree on everything. We agree on a lot, but we don't agree on everything.
mm.
And a ton, and I know a fair bit. And neither one of us knows everything, and that's the way it is.
Exactly. So it's pretty wild. Yeah, exactly. So I think do you want us to maybe talk a little bit about the Pat King thing, because that's been weighing heavy on my heart. I'm not gonna lie. I know we haven't. I mean, that was partially why I wasn't so motivated to even create content, just because it took the
Abs-
wind out of our sails, right? And so, but do you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, that was, I think, our, like, we had, I don't even know, it was like 30-40,000 views on that one video alone that Pat had streamed through our platform, or vice
right,
versa.
and for context, Pat was one of the more active people on the ground in Ottawa,
Mm,
supporting the truckers and the Freedom Convoy. And after they I guess that he was arrested, and he spent 5 months in prison uh, without charge. He was really a political prisoner, and had his bank accounts all shut down. Didn't have access to money because of his portrayal within the public. He was having great challenges just getting access to a lawyer. Like nobody would want to represent him. Like he was effectively blackballed, and we had a like I feel like if we reviewed that tape with him, I mean, he was just giving it his all. And did he make mistakes? Yeah, yes, he did. And everybody makes mistakes. And has he said some things that he regrets over time? Absolutely. Does that mean he should spend 5 months in jail for being part of a lawful, peaceful protest? That was only kind of gotten unlawful, like really when um, you know they brought in the thugs, and heavy and all of his accounts are still frozen. um, and I think he's under as part of his bail conditions, which he finally received after 5 months, was that he could not use social media, he could not attend any events, he could not do this, he could not do that. It's like a laundry list of things to get set up. And this is the same thing that happened to Tamara Lich too. She was released on bail and then was a guest speaker or to receive an award at a freedom kind of event. And her lawyer was with her, and a picture was taken, and they used that as the impetus to throw her back in jail for a number of weeks. It just does not look good, and ultimately history will show the actions, and will shine truth on the subject of what actually took place here. I think there's a new trucker documentary that came out, or that's coming out, if it's not released already. I know there's a book released by Andrew Lawton from True North media organization, detailing kind of the events that took place there. And remember, that was 17 days of basically freezing man, Burning Man North, where people came together and radically kind of participated in an inclusive, um, exhibition of civic responsibility, asking for an audience with many questions that needed answering. And, we've since seen a lot more information. It's come out that that it was very politically motivated. All the travel mandates in the beginning, they weren't rooted in science, it was politics. Um, Also, one of the lead negotiators broke silence the other day. I think his name was Dean French, stating that they were really close to an agreement to start getting the trucks out of Ottawa. And it was going to be kind of peacefully resolved. And there was there were some negotiations and discussions taking place around day 17, and then day 18, let's say it was that they announced the Emergencies Act. So like imagine you're negotiating, a settlement with somebody, and then before the negotiations conclude, you decide to, have them swatted or something, or you take serious action against them. It's horrible.
Insane. Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the big things was also the funding thing, and I think we touched on it as well in our episode, right, with Nunchuck, and and kind of like how Bitcoin was used by a group of people to fund the truckers, and I think we covered that quite well, probably better than anyone
Oh
else.
yeah, and I mean, and like and Chrystia
Topic.
Freeland too, who
Mm.
her name is just like is kind of ironic. Um, she was laughing about all of that, and like showed such disdain really for the premise and the
What
rights of
happened
the people to be able to
there?
stand up.
I saw her name in the news recently, but I didn't quite even dig
Oh
in. But
yeah, there's a clip has gone viral of someone who is frustrated with her, who is really angry at her, like
okay,
shouted obscenities at her, in a hallway, and like did not welcome her to Alberta, was not friendly to her, was not violent, was verbal, but it triggered a whole bunch of crying on behalf of the government and all the these tyranny supporters around. Oh, you can't, like this is abusive. This was a threat. Like Marco Mendocino, like the public safety minister, said it wasn't a threat just to her. It was a threat to democracy. It was so ridiculous. Honestly, like it seemed like it was potentially staged, as Tate, one of our commenters, just said. It definitely, I can't say definitively, what's that's the case to be, but it seemed kind of it seemed off. And even if it wasn't staged, um, you know, I don't think even if it wasn't staged, it wasn't like that's not a way that I would suggest people go about like acting with people and with like these people. But at the same time, dude, they've put a lot of pressure on all Canadians. They've ruined people's livelihoods. They've indebted the country. It's a real shame to see where things are right now.
hey Kyle, someone's asking, yo Kyle, let's hear your thoughts on Marcus Ray, Christopher James movement. Any thoughts on that?
I'm not too familiar with Marcus Ray, but I know Christopher James is all about what, like taking down the corporation of Canada and like separating ourselves and coming back to common law. I think that's a really interesting means of how can we reclaim sovereignty over ourselves and over our land. Um, if you're more interested in Christopher James's movement, check him out. I think his website is the Awakened Warrior or something along those lines. Maybe send some more info if you've got it, Macro Stiff.
Hey, do you mind if I play a little clip for the Alex Berenson? I guess let's just go in order what we were talking about. Oh, you wanted to talk about the trucker documentary. What's that about?
I think it's on Rebel. Like, there's going to be a
Oh, is
documentary
it that the
coming
guy
out.
from Alberta, or like the guy who captured kind of the story at the border and all that? Or
I'm not sure exactly what it is. I just I know it's coming out, and I'm excited. I look forward to kind of seeing how it's portrayed and the different angles, because it was incredible how much content we were exposed to. I mean, I feel like there was so much positive energy during that time
it
amongst
was
so
so
many people,
inspiring.
like that felt all of a sudden like a ray of hope, or like an opportunity to kind of come together and just say no.
This was downtown Toronto. People partying, like
In the middle of winter,
yeah.
and now it's like the middle of summer too, and yet things are continuing. But I'll also say, like, I know, like, personally, a lot of people who have been sick lately, and have been hurt, and not and like and I've been hospitalized due to mysterious illnesses. I wonder where those are all coming from. And this is something like, I think the whole convoy movement was about, because like, I mean, personally, I was speaking about well before these things were even released, that, A, it's dangerous, but B, it's like, it's a system of control that's being unleashed. And then as we've seen more and more, these are very, very dangerous experimental concoctions that are being pushed into the majority of people's bloodstreams. And I think now we're coming up on like a year and a half, almost 2 years of these injections taking place, and there's a lot of people who are sick. I think it's hitting home. Have you seen it around you at all, Sonny?
Unfortunately, I have. Yeah. Some really really close people to me are not feeling well. Let's leave it at that. And yeah, and they're unsure as to where the source might be, and etc. etc. And so yeah, and not being a doctor, it's always hard for me to jump to conclusions. But I'm definitely noticing a pattern. That's for sure.
Right. And I mean, I've talked to some people who are like really close, like their entire families are like, are going down, like, debilitating autoimmune disease. It's like the entire world has just gotten AIDS and nobody's willing to recognize it. What Alberta said, the number one leading cause of death is unknown causes. Like, come on, this is ridiculous, folks. If we can't even like, if the doctors in Canada and the nurses in Canada won't recognize the fact that these injections are causing autoimmune diseases and responses, and people are getting ill, if they're just and they're paralyzed with fear out of their own careers, like, this is how dangerous the situation has become, where we can't even look the truth in the eyes anymore. And
Mm,
that's when we got a really vicious, nasty myth has taken hold of society. And it's more important than ever that we continue to stand up. I mean, goodness gracious, my friend can't even get, if anybody's a midwife in or knows a midwife in Mississauga,
mm,
please drop a comment or reach out. I have someone, a very good friend, who cannot even like have a home birth because all the midwives blacklist them because they weren't willing to wear masks through the entire birthing process, which just seems completely ridiculous to me.
mm,
It's like, we had a baby in 4.5 months ago in San Diego, and we originally were going to go the hospital route, but then my wife, when she was in the first trimester trying to go see the doctor, they
mm,
wouldn't see her unless she wore the mask, and she was dealing with morning sickness. It was horrible. And so we looked for alternatives. We found some midwives, and then we realized very quickly that, hey, the midwifery experience is far more conscious. And we did everything at home, and it was so pure and natural. And I'd recommend that to anybody, especially considering the state of the hospitals right now. So,
mm.
yeah.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
anybody knows any midwives around the Mississauga area, yeah, they still wanted masks for the home births. That's right.
Insane, insane.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
It's
ah,
like,
and not for
and for the
themselves,
visits too,
because
and
they
the
wanted
visits,
to
and then,
go. Oh my goodness.
and I would say too that in Canada, so the difference between Canada and America was in California, we had to pay the midwives. It was private. We had to pay them. They didn't receive any government subsidy. In Canada, the midwives are subsidized. Therefore, they were like just going along with this indoctrination line, going along with these things for fear of having their funding cut.
Yeah,
So this is like, like you
it's all
mentioned this
coming
earlier.
out,
This
Kyle. It's all
and
coming
this
out, dude.
and
Mhm.
but it all comes towards like, this is the danger of universal basic income. This is the
Yeah.
danger of living in a welfare society, is when you're dependent on the government to provide for you and provide those essential services for you. As soon as you're like, if you stand up, you're like, hey, that's dangerous. Or it's like, hey, you won't get your UBI unless you're injected or sterilized. Like, you can push it to
Mm,
the extremes, but like that's where it could get to. So it's more important than ever to be self-sovereign and try and be self-reliant for yourselves and to come together. And I think what we're going to see, I'm sure in Canada, I know in California it was emerging, was almost underground networks of health practitioners who don't abide by the this system healthcare, or sick care, as a lot of people joked around calling it down there. The pharmaceutical health system that looks for treatments as opposed to cures in many cases.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs. And the truth is how are people even going to find out the truth if they muzzle, like there's only a handful of people out there that are even trying, like us, to inform our friends and family about the risks and whatnot. And this was a community strike that I got on YouTube for the one video that I decided to broadcast that you and I had done. And so YouTube is where the masses reside, right? And so hey, I was gonna ask you, do you mind if I bring up the Alex Berenson thing? I just thought, like, wow, what a
go for it.
He was one of the big people that was really just following the data and got ostracized for it. Okay, I'm just gonna share my screen here. Just let me know if it doesn't come through the audio there.
That's vindication.
Oh, it looks like it might not.
I hear the audio.
You do. I don't.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night.
Hear the audio.
All day.
I hear the audio. I think you've got it on loop. You might have it say mute when capturing.
That's vindication.
You
You are the sweet smell of vindication.
Where is that exactly?
Not yet, my friend. Not yet.
Not
Mute-
yet,
oh,
but
mute
it's,
when
it's
capturing.
definitely in the air. Has there ever been a person that has gone to court and got back on Twitter besides you?
There is not.
That's pretty impressive.
So, there's more coming.
There's more?
Oh yeah.
So
Now I can hear it. Can you still hear it, Kyle?
No, now you've cut us off.
Huh.
of what they kicked you off.
You're back?
Oh,
Yeah.
are we live?
Yeah, we're
Okay, just let me know when
Um,
it's. I mean, I don't want to play the
all
whole
right.
thing. It's just kind of the.
So it was almost exactly this time last year, Joe. It was August 28th, 2021. I wrote a tweet that began, "It doesn't stop infection or transmission," and they banned me.
All right, that's good, Sonny. We can. This is a really great interview. Highly encourage people to check it out, as Mumsy commented.
Yeah.
It's long. We could sit here for 3
Oh
hours.
no! We're not going to play. I just wanted to people knew. But the TLDR there is what is that he was banned from Twitter for saying that the thing, right, gives you what it doesn't stop transmission and all this, and he was vindicated, obviously, and
it's
he
a therapy that you need to pre-dose in order to do it, and
he took Twitter to court and he won. And now he's back on Twitter, which is just ginormous. And from what I've heard is that YouTube and a lot of the other companies are now also kind of adjusting their terms and their community striking guidelines and all that as per this court case. And I'm sure there's more to follow, right? There's a lot coming. But very, very interesting interview. And people, if you're interested in this space, listen to that. It just came out yesterday.
Yeah, and I would say too, it's like, what right now looks like time is passing and more questions and more kind of evidence is coming out around the breakdowns that took place.
Mortality, the one that's really hard to argue against is the all-cause mortality, right? It's up like 10% or something. And
yeah,
I mean, there's so many other things that he talks about in that interview, but people should just check it out on their own.
Well, and I just would also, like, we're almost the end of September, or end of August. September's around the corner. It's like, what's next? Like, as more questions start coming about, like, I think the Ukraine proxy war is not resonating so strongly amongst, the liberal masses anymore. So what is going to be the next thing that they try to distract everybody?
I think monkeypox, they were trying a little bit with that.
I think monkeypox, I don't think climate, and like, the climate is another perfect example of an unwinnable war on a non-existent like enemy. It's just it was global warming and it was global cooling, and now it's just climate change, and now they've even removed the change. It's just climate has now become a loaded word. And this is something Jordan Peterson goes into great deep depth about. Really love him. He's done great work.
And he spoke about Bitcoin.
Yeah, he's great. Okay, so what else?
I can hear that, by the way, whatever you're playing.
the hits on BlackRock.
The BlackRock.
Oh,
3,000.
sorry about that. Yeah, I was queuing up something, but I can't. So yeah, we've got some audio stuff we got to figure out. But I'll have to lean on you if you guys have heard this stuff. Shall we go to that or no?
Sure, let's go to that.
Or should we maybe let's keep going down the, I don't know. Yeah, we can go into, we can do whatever we want. Okay. Give me 1 second. So let me know when it comes through, and then Kyle, I'll lean on you to kind of tell me when to stop it because I can't hear it.
Bitcoin. One of my important investors was on one of the television shows last few days, and he spoke about Bitcoin and two of, one, monetary policy, two, and three, COVID. The hits on BlackRock on our website was 3,000 on COVID, 3,000 hits on a monetary policy, and 600,000 hits on Bitcoin. So what that tells you is Bitcoin has caught the attention and the imagination of many people. Many people are fascinated about it. Many people are excited about it, but it's still untested. It's still a pretty small market relative to other markets. It can be, we see these big giant movements every day. It's a thin market. And so can it evolve into a global market? Possibly. Certainly by evidence of the imagination of so many who want to learn about it or interested in about it.
All right, that's good, Sonny.
Very telling sign.
So that CEO of BlackRock talking to Mark Carney, right?
Yeah, Mark Carney was the former bank governor of Canada, and I've seen previous interactions between the two of them. It's weird. I remember the last time he mentioned Bitcoin, Mark Carney went you could see he was repulsed and scared by it. In that they make reference that BlackRock or that Bitcoin is still unproven. It's I challenge that. I mean, it's unproven to be a global reserve currency. I don't think Bitcoin was ever intended to be a global reserve currency, but it is intended to be an open, permissionless, parallel financial system. And I think a lot of we become so infatuated with the price of Bitcoin over the years, and the greed connotation and the greed element and the speculative nature of Bitcoin has definitely helped it to grow. But ultimately, from my perspective, the point of Bitcoin is an open, inclusive monetary system that anybody can participate, that you don't need permission in order to use or transact within. And that is very, very, very powerful. It has proven Bitcoin has never been down. The core network has never been hacked. Individuals have been hacked and have lost their passwords and had coins stolen from them. Exchanges have been targets and attacked, but the network as a whole is super robust, and and it's facing its own pressures. And now BlackRock saying, "Hey, we're going to get involved in this." And honestly, with the financial flow, from a speculative point of view, that BlackRock and Vanguard and Mark Carney representing the central bankers, if they work together, and I'm sure they are planning on some type of activity towards mitigating the effects of Bitcoin, or how can they utilize it as a system of control. And that's, what do you think, Sonny? Can Bitcoin is Bitcoin?
Wait, did you just say they're using Bitcoin as a system of control?
I mean, ultimately, I believe that if they can get enough control over it, you can utilize Bitcoin as a system of control. Yes, it's public. If everybody at the bottom is using Bitcoin, then it's a transparent public layer of transactions for everybody at the bottom. If those at the top of the pyramid don't use it, they remain in secret. So it's this is we really need to apply this technology within governments, within corporations, within lobbying for the transparency and accountability that the technology provides. But if it's just if it's utilized en masse at a consumer retail level, there isn't that much privacy within Bitcoin. It can be used as a system of it could be abused as a system of control.
True. I guess that there's definitely an argument to be made there, and it is somewhat, what's it called, like not private, right, today in terms of the privacy element of it. But given the nature that it is open source, and there's obviously a strong desire for the community at large to make it more private, and there are a lot of kind of things that are happening under the hood that I think make me believe that Bitcoin is moving more towards privacy, because privacy isn't just about like getting away from bad guys. It's like fundamentally something that's required by businesses, by people, by everyone, just because they don't want, everyone to be able to figure out what they're doing. So yes, I agree, but I don't think on all levels. Like, for example, one of the biggest, I think, things that's wrong with the world, if you ask me, is that the fact that we can, or just a group of people can, print as much money as they want. I think with Bitcoin, the fact that it's limited to 21 million, the fact that you need this like consensus, 51% or whatever to agree, and this and that, I don't know. I find like it's not what I don't see them as being like, as loving this. I think if they are accepting it, it's more just like you just saw, for reasons like that, where they're like, look, 3,000 people looked up, COVID, and 600,000 people looked up Bitcoin. Like the populace is just gravitating towards it. So they're kind of, brought to this by force to some extent, right? They have to follow the masses.
And we're seeing regulators too come along, though. Like, there's talk about banning unhosted wallets. It's like, if Bitcoin is just operating within exchanges, within the Coinbases and the Krakens, and like, in circles of the world, then like, then we're just dealing with some more custodians of our money.
True. No, I think they are coming.
I mean, dude, we saw with Tornado Cash, the developer of the Tornado Cash got sent to jail. Maybe it was related to something else, but and we saw the seizing of USDC funds. So USDC is the Circle stable coin that's like pegged 1-to-1 with the US dollar, and there's centralized abilities to censor transactions, on that platform. So we talk all about, and we've talked a lot about CBDCs and central bank digital currencies. Guess what, folks? They're already here, and it's called USDC, and it already has that ability to be censored. So,
true,
I'm wrong.
But draw a line between Bitcoin and crypto as well, which I think is a very important one, right? Like, yes, crypto, there's a lot of stuff you can criticize about CBDCs or USDC and all the other crypto out there, but Bitcoin is still censorship resistant. It is still open source. It is still hard limited to 21 million. And I believe that, that it does represent a beacon of hope for us. I mean, if there's something better, you tell me, but I haven't seen a better potential solution at like almost every
from a privacy perspective, like Monero or Zcash. Like,
true.
Why isn't Monero getting more limelight? Why is it always Bitcoin?
Network effects.
And also
network effects. Yeah, network effects. And but it also shows that there is a way towards privacy, meaning for Bitcoin as well. And I do think that, like I said, if you look at a lot of, I think Schnorr's algorithm, all this stuff that's happening, there is definitely a gravitational pull towards more privacy, not less, at least in the Bitcoin ethos. Anyways, but yeah, I guess, we can agree.
Here's a nice little piece. U.S. Federal Reserve to launch the FedNow instant payment system between May and July 2023. So it's coming. It's coming.
Oh yeah. My God, what are they doing? What did you share, by the way, in the private there? Do you want me to share this? Or
yeah, let's watch this video. This is a good time.
Is that like an Ethereum thing or something?
It looks like it's Vitalik rapping.
Okay, sorry. Could you hear it when I turned it on? Oh no, actually no, probably. Okay, let me play it now. Just 1 second. So when you want to set some context, what are we sharing here?
I mean, this is just like kind of the happiness. So there's a big thing happening in the Ethereum community called the merge. So the Ethereum is moving to proof of stake in September, and this seemed like a little bit of a hype dance session, which I think is just a good time.
Can you hear it?
No, it's when we learn a shard will change the whole game, though.
Can you hear it?
Yo.
Yeah, can you hear it or no? Can you hear it?
Yeah, I could hear it. It's fine.
Yo, shot 3, PLS, Landboard, and all of this crypto just sets the stage for Merkle proofs, plasma chains, plat, seekers, narcs, coming over, quack, privacy scaling in a snap, constant product oracles, tap, Merkle proofs, plasma chains, plat, seekers, narcs, coming over, quack, privacy scaling in a snap, constant product
They at
oracles,
least
it's all about the
embrace how
taps.
quirky and
Every
weird they
user,
are.
every
All right, that's good. That's like that was amazing.
My goodness. It's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
Seems like all of your comments are stopped. I don't know if anybody's still here or not.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised anyone's commenting. We haven't done this show in 4 months. The fact that anyone's leaving anything is surprising. Hey, what else? I'm keeping a bit of a checklist on the side here of things we wanted to talk about. Fauci's fired. Or no, not fired. He's leaving on his own accord. Do you have anything on that? What's going on with Fauci?
I mean, I think a lot of people are going to try and like dip out, in time. Hey, Boris Johnson resigned, right? Like, they're like a lot of the key actors are going to try and get out before the whole house collapses, and by getting out, seem to avoid culpability and responsibility. But I mean, Fauci is definitely one of the lead actors within the whole thing. I think he's goes deep, and has a long career and history of being involved specifically around vaccines and coronavirus. Personally, like affiliated to some patents around the technology being utilized today. The investigation into him should continue, but the same token, like any one of these people who are like public front people, let's just remember they're public front people. There's interest behind them that that don't necessarily get highlighted. So he's not the be all and end all. He can go away. Everything will continue. Same with my brother. Same with Freeland. Same with any one of these middle manager prime ministers or presidents.
So, speaking of banning. and
So who?
censorship, have you heard about this guy he's the next enemy of the state?
Yeah, Andrew Tate. Talk about Andrew Tate, Sonny.
Andrew Tate issues a final message to viewers in a video that was uploaded to Vimeo. So they hate him. So I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know who Andrew Tate is. He's a highly controversial figure, and he's been essentially banned off of the internet. I heard that last month he was Googled more than Trump and Kardashians combined, just to let people know how, I guess, he's kind of struck the ethos, the zeitgeist in a pretty big way. He did have some controversial people. I don't think we know exactly why he got banned. He had a bunch of things that he used to say that was pretty edgy. A lot of people are saying it was probably because of his viewpoint on the jab and the vaccine and COVID. And he was on, I think, the Alex Jones show as well, and spoke quite vocally about, or against it rather. But he was huge. Like literally every day, every man I know was like, what the hell's going on with YouTube? Like it's the only, like, people love him, hate him. They were just like, I can't get rid of him, right? He's there. And he had a bit of a strategy around how he kind of conquered the internet, as he likes to call it. But they were not having it. They were not having it. And he's gone. He's gone now. And so now he's on Rumble, and he's, making the move as well. But at what point, I think Alex Jones and Trump, they kind of spoke to a much larger group of people that weren't necessarily like internet warrior types. But now with guys like Andrew Tate, he's speaking to a much younger generation. And when they start getting banned and they start getting, pushed away from all of this, it's like at one point, what's going to happen, right? Like, is YouTube going to keep maintaining its dominance, and is it just going to keep plugging along, or is it going to be like this division in the internet? And well, I don't know. Speaking of hated people, will you be rescheduling your interview with Jeremy McKenzie?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, so Jeremy and I are supposed to be talking. So Jeremy, oh man, I guess Jeremy was one of the guys who came up with the Diagolon meme. Him and his crew, which Diagolon is the imagine a country that extended from Alaska to Florida in a diagonal line. Well, that was going to be termed Diagolon, and they created a whole kind of story around it. And then I guess, there was something about this a bunch of months ago. And then in the last few days, Jeremy Mackenzie was like, a photo of him with Pierre Poilievre came out. And then Rachel Gilmore from one of the mainstream mouthpieces Twitter accounts came out trying to smear Pierre Poilievre by shaking hands with Jeremy Mackenzie, who was, according to them, a white nationalist, supreme extremist organization. When literally the whole thing was a friggin' meme. And it took on this whole line, and there's a whole bunch of footage of sitting parliamentarians talking about the dangers of Diagolon. And it was just so outrageous. And so anyways, but by trying to smear Pierre by associating, Diagolon to him, at the same time they're also smearing, committing defamation and libel against Jeremy Mackenzie and his crew of people and his audience. And like us, Sonny, Jeremy and his crew were just doing live casts and creating citizen journalism and exploring and asking questions and having discussions about what's really taking place. And and making memes about it. And memes absolutely are if the mainstream could ban memes, they would. I'm pretty sure there's been a number of attempts at it, because a good meme can rip to shreds a very expensive kind of ad campaign, and can hopefully shock people out. But it's sad for Jeremy to be underneath all this political pressure and underneath all this legal pressure too. And now I think they issued an arrest warrant for him in Saskatchewan for this. So it's and I was talking to my friend named Kyle, who is also on a list, because he was involved with a group that like to gather men together, drink beers, and talk about Trump. And then the House of Commons, after the whole January 6th fiasco, declared them a domestic terrorist organization. And so that ruined his life for a while. This is the danger of the power by which the mainstream, this is one of the tools they have, is they can discredit and defame people. And then people will want to be ostracized and will question, be gaslit into questioning, do you really support Jeremy Mackenzie? I'm like, do I really support him? I'm not, I don't give him a seal of approval or anything, but it's definitely worth talking to him and exploring with him what's going on, especially in having an open conversation about what's happening. Because at the end of the day, I think he's also doing a lot of investigative work that the quote unquote investigative journalists don't do. So kudos to him for doing that. And by creating a meme and a funny idea Diagolon, that's just funny. And to get all bent out of shape about that, and to call it a terrorist organization, and I don't know, I might be missing something, but for me, I'm more than willing to get on with Jeremy and go deep and explore how do we move forward? What are the things that we can do to create?
Agreed. Hey, do you mind if I share a little bit of footage from what's going on in China? Because things have just gotten worse there, and I think it's important that people see how bad this can get. No,
Sure. I don't.
I mean, it's probably not the best way to. But look, this is Jack Dorsey saying end the CCP, not me. He goes, life in Beijing, relentless COVID testing and health app that dictates where I go. Green code is needed to enter public areas.
This is part of my
Can you hear
daily
it?
routine in Beijing.
Yeah.
Getting my temperature checked.
Mandatory
Yes, I'm
testing
gonna
for the
stop it.
city's 20 million plus residents.
So I've got to show them my passport, and they have to type it in every single time.
Beijing halted almost all public activity for weeks over just a few dozen daily COVID cases.
Non-essential stores have been shut down, including schools and gyms, and all in-restaurant dining is banned indefinitely.
The capital recently reopened some venues like malls and parks with limited capacity, and visitors have to show proof of a recent COVID test. But still, the biggest crowds often appear to be parades of COVID workers, spraying disinfectant all over the streets.
Oh my God, what a horrible place to be living. What a dystopic nightmare.
Mm. Mm.
Like, that it's like almost like, that movie Gattaca, like, you have to, the valids and the invalids, like, this is, the extent to which it gets. Like, oh, I mean, this is terrible. And to see, CNN doing a big feature on that, it's like, prepping, that's kind of, what we'd like to see, and doing it like, this is all in a good day's work. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it was kind of a cheery voice from the commentator there. It wasn't a critical voice.
And then on a similar note, Kyle, you heard about this, how they were protecting the central bank in China with tanks? I think it was a couple weeks ago, where people were worried about their money. They couldn't, I don't know, whatever it was. And then check this out.
Loud.
Oh, whoa.
That was like incredibly loud. Still stupid loud. We don't need audio.
Tanks, central
but
bank.
like, what were people gonna do? Like, is there
Tanks.
I guess there's hordes of cash and gold and things sitting in there.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'm sharing this also to, like, might seem a bit disjointed that we're talking about, these like draconian policies and then Bitcoin and all that, but it's all connected, it's all connected. And so I'm saying this is the extent that they'll go to protect, the central banks and all that. Anyways, scary stuff, man, scary stuff. But give me some positive. Oh, well, let's stay on the topic of scary stuff. Have you been following the news in India? The crypto scene there, or let's maybe wait. Let's wait for that one maybe before we get there. You were talking about something about there's a news about some resolution of the Emergency Act. Is that something you already talked about, or do you want to touch on that?
Oh, that was just one of the other kind of news items, just that is falling through the cracks. That at the end of the convoy, they were close to a negotiated settlement or finding some sort of peaceful resolution, and then they declared the Emergency Act and brought in the thugs to kick everybody out of the party that was the Freedom Convoy. So it just seemed all political, and all staged.
And then what about the $45 million fine? Have you been digging into that? What's going on with
Well,
Alex?
so I mean, Alex Jones, like, he said, and he's apologized, but he said that, like, I guess he said that Sandy Hook did not occur, and there was a court case against him, and for him saying that, so he said a falsehood. He's since apologized for it. He went to trial. There was a jury. It was a crazy show. He's ordered to pay more than $45 million in damages, because he claimed it didn't occur. And this is just like, this one irks me from a freedom of speech point of view, that words, even if they're improperly said, could lead to that kind of damages, and, like, this political kind of with witch hunt with a financial penalty attached to it. And then the court case itself seemed a little bit like a circus. Like, he wasn't able to defend himself on a bunch of different things, and the judge clearly had an agenda. And this was, Alex Jones is kind of an enemy of the state, really.
Speaking of enemy of the state, have you been tracking what's been going on with the Mar-a-Lago Trump's FBI raid or whatever it was last week?
And I'm like, tracking it, but it seems like they released a bunch of fully redacted papers. One of the things that was promised with the whole thing was transparency, and it's who knows what they're going after. I mean, you can imagine Trump was probably holding on to. I mean, it's just all hypothesis, but I would posit that he likely has, had information, and that information is a threat. So how do we get, people to go in and try and capture the information, if you will, and whether it has to deal with, who knows, a laptop or a pizza party or a a suicide, who knows. But hey, gas prices are down a little bit, so I guess Brandon's doing something good, right?
Brandon's doing something good. There was another thing I wanted to bring attention to, which was what? Oh, right. So again, we're kind of just jumping back and forth between, I guess, COVID stuff and Bitcoin stuff, or whatever. So the next thing is, as we mentioned, climate change and how that's going to kill us all and this and that, right? And then how Bitcoin, is like, there's this narrative developing around how Bitcoin is not, green and blah, blah, blah. So this I thought was super cool. Let me know. Can you hear it?
Is what a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just shut up.
As you mentioned, Bitcoin is also interesting, or let's call it, I think cryptocurrency is what a lot of folks call it. Cryptocurrency creates this great opportunity for us. As we get more and more renewable generation, in particular wind, and wind is operating at night, we have an excess amount of wind. We need to find a home for that. Otherwise, we just have to turn the wind down. And it's such a great resource, we shouldn't be turning it down. So crypto has found a way to come into our market and to take some of that excess wind in off-peak periods. And then when we get to peak period times, they're very quick to remove themselves from the market as prices increase. So it's a great opportunity for us.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, we're just talking about there is in times when there's excess energy, funneling that energy into Bitcoin miners or crypto miners is a way to turn that excess energy, into a resource, into an asset that ultimately can be used to reduce the price on the network for everybody else. This is something a lot of in Ontario, in the summer when it's windy and sunny, there's excess energy to the point where they they would kind of throttle down I think the nuclear power output, and seem kind of ridiculous. So it's or there's times when we would have so much excess energy that we would be paying money to send it to transmit it to the States. We'd actually be paying people to take our excess energy. So the concept here is, instead of just wasting or paying that, use it to mine Bitcoin and mine Ethereum and mine any cryptos that generate those assets. So the whole thing about mining Bitcoin is it takes a lot of energy, but when you participate in a group that successfully mines the new blocks, then you get rewarded with the newly generated coins. And right now, it's 6.25 Bitcoin per block, which is at 20,000, it's $125,000 worth of Bitcoin is being generated every 10 minutes effectively. So this is and that energy can be turned into capturing some of this new economic value output. So that's kind of the argument there.
Cool. Kyle, you wanted to also, I guess, touch on Stoicism a bit. This is actually something I tweeted today. I thought this could be kind of, I don't know, maybe a kickoff point for that. I think it's an important topic. So remember this principle: when something threatens to cause you pain, the thing itself was no misfortune at all. To endure it and prevail is great good fortune.
Well said, Marcus. Well
Mm,
said.
yeah, smart cookie. So
Yeah,
what
it
is
was-
Stoicism?
well, I mean, I was just driving yesterday with my wife Brittany, and we were going for her father's birthday, and she pulled out the book called, what was it called? The Key to a Good Day, or I don't know, something like that. But it was all about Stoicism, and it just really resonated as, you know, a life philosophy around, you know, how to operate and not. I feel like it's like kind of a guide towards not getting, like, you know, too high or too low, or being, or letting your energy be kind of manipulated by others, you know, too much being pulled into things. A lot of people kind of feel like stoicism means like you're just unreactive to anything, but it's like, you know, you can still enjoy great pleasures, and you can still, like, you know, be a hedonist, but it's like, you know, playing it's from like kind of a long game approach. I don't know, what are your thoughts, Suddy? You read a lot more, and you've studied it more than I have. Like, you've got the daily meditations of the Stoic probably next to you right there.
Yeah, I have been reading a lot about it. I've been reading now. I just started reading meditations as well. But there are, from what I understand, there's essentially like, is it 4 tenets, right? Which is, oof, I'm gonna already forget them. Do you know what they are? You know which ones I'm talking about? There's 4 tenets of Stoicism. You know what I'm talking about? So it's wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Those are the 4. That is, it's like if you had to sum up Stoicism in 4 words. So once again, it's about wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. I think we exercise a lot of that on the Love and Freedom show.
Those are the 4 tenets. I've also just found the 4 pillars of stoicism, which is acceptance, awareness, action, and anti-fragility.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So Stoicism is, what is it a Greek philosophy? Is it come from the Greeks? Is that, I mean, I probably wish I knew more about it. I mean, like I said, I've been reading books about it, and there's a lot of great, like, it's just every time you read a quote from Stoicism, it just puts life into perspective a little bit. And you know, it's like that, I don't know, that fatherly kind of message that you need, you know, just like not necessarily detach yourself, but it's important to, I don't know, I guess have a hold of your emotions to some extent, to feel it fully and openly, but to also be virtuous and to, I don't know, just to, one of the things that really impacted me is, as I was going through all this stuff, was that there's a guy named Ryan Holiday who writes a lot of great books about stoicism, and he kind of breaks it into, you know, everyday words. And so one thing he was saying is that, you know, if you can read but you don't read, you're equivalent to somebody who cannot read at all, right? So let that sink in. Like, just because you can read, but if you don't actually read, you're equivalent to that guy on the street that can't read at all. Like, just, you know what I mean? Because you're not actually exercising your ability to read and constantly grow. And the second thing that they said was that if you haven't read at least 100 books, then you are effectively illiterate, right? Think about that for a second. And that's what really set me off a few months ago. So in this last 3-4 months, I've been spending a lot of time obviously focusing on work and family and all that stuff, but also reading. Like I've read, I don't know, I want to say 150 books in the last couple months. And I try and read a book a day now. You know, some books maybe take a day and a half, but like some days I'll read 2 books in a day. But I've really taken to this, like, this idea that, you know, that books can set you free, and everything I know is a function of, you know, great, I guess you could say, are good books and great people, right? And so, and as we're navigating through this world of like unknown, I find like books provide, or good books rather, provide a great, they provide you like mental models and frameworks and ways to you know, tackle challenges. And, you know, one of the books that Ryan Holiday that I read of recently was called The Obstacle is the Way, right? Like, what a beautiful way. And that's like, again, drawn from Stoicism. The obstacle is the way. So it's like, when you think that and you let that sink in, when you see something that gets in your way, you're just like charging at it, like, you know, American Gladiator style, and not shying away from it. And so I think, yeah, Stoicism has brought a lot of good things into my life. There's a lot. I've drawn a lot from like Buddhism and yoga and meditation and things like that. But Stoicism is a bit different. It's got a different kind of twist to it, and I don't know. I always find a lot of truth in it. So anyway, that's my take on it. Anything else you want to share on Stoicism? We can probably do a whole episode on just that. Maybe prepare a bunch of quotes and thoughts and just go deep down it.
Yeah,
I was
waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one.
Right. Yeah. And what does it mean?
I think one of the things too that like one of the kind of the pieces that my wife was kind of like recognizing yesterday and discussing it was dealing with kind of confrontation or aggression and like not necessarily engaging, but sometimes using humor as a means, and also just like accepting, like not getting kind of baited into anger or hate or an unnecessary fight. And I feel like that's really appropriate for kind of where we are today in this like this cancel world and this like this politically charged arena where it's like it feels like as much as you're looking for people to agree to you with for some things, like you're seeking this affirmation from the crowd and support from the crowd, also like receiving a rush and like a desire for confrontation from others. So it's like it's like kind of bully mentality. If you can get the other people like really angry and fired up and aggressive and feeling either scared or hateful or little, then like somehow that's powerful to you. So that's the conclusion or the thought was that instead of like giving those people your power by getting angry, it's just it's like okay, it's like dissuade, maybe turn a joke or use humor cleverly, but like don't like avoid escalation.
Did I tell you about my favorite? Like, so I mean, this is a very, I think, important topic that doesn't really get talked about at all publicly, which is what does it mean to be a man? Like I think that's very strong, obviously feminine, whatever movement and this and that. But like, I rarely hear any like TV show or any podcast talk about like, what does it even mean to be a man? Like, I had the good fortune of reading a book that had a huge impact on me by a guy named David Data. Have you heard of this book called The Way of the Superior Man? Yeah.
Yes.
And in it, he's probably talked about it 1,000 times, right? But in it, he talks about these 5 things, right? What it means. What it is, like, stop waiting, right? Feel everything, love achingly, give impeccably, and then let go. Right? Those were kind of like the 5 takeaways. Anyway, so in that book, he had this beautiful story of this like man who comes home, and he comes home to his wife, and it just so happens that day was the day that he conquered his like life mission. His goal was to become a millionaire. He became a millionaire that day. He comes home and he goes, "Sweetie, like I did it. We made it. Like, we've got $1 million." And then his wife turns to him and says, "Great. Did you get the milk?" And he's like, "What? Did you just say did you hear what I just told you? I just said we did it. We made I made the goal, right? It's like we could buy a farm. Like, what are you talking about? Did you get the milk?" And she's like, "I told you to get the milk this morning. Did you get it?" Right? And he obviously like throws a big fit and like, "You don't even love me. You don't even know anything. Da 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 da." And storms off, right? And that's like the mediocre man. That's the average man. That was, arguably myself in most cases as well. But then there's like the way of the superior man who sees the kind of the beauty in that moment and recognizes that to some, and people will probably find this like maybe somewhat controversial, but like the feminine is always testing the masculine, right? And it's not because they don't love you. It's just to see what is the source of your truth. Is it $1 million is by questioning that, are you off of your game now? Or is it something deeper, something that is unperturbable? Like, there's the Shiva in you, if people know that reference, right? So, and she is always trying to kind of bring that out. And so a superior man might look at that, recognize the humor in it, lift his woman, his wife up in the air, turn her around 5 times, throw her on the couch, give her a bunch of kisses, and go and get the milk. You know what I mean? And it's not about necessarily like engaging in a fight or like letting your ego be defeated, but to see through all of that, right? And anyways, a beautiful book. If anyone's looking for some kind of guidance, that book's helped me immensely in terms of like recognizing what it is.
Thank you, Sunny, for sharing that beautiful tale. I'm just going to be conscious. I feel a storm has arrived at my house right now, and I oftentimes lose power, so I might drop
Bring
off.
it to a close, shall
I
we?
think we should bring it to a
I think this
close.
has been great, dude. Raise finance, India crypto scene meetups. We can save those for the next one if you want, or if you want to quickly touch on it, we can as well. You tell me.
Well, over the last 4 months, I've been building a new platform called Raise, which is a security, an NFT securities platform for raising capital and tokenizing equity and revenue. And it's really interesting. I would love to have a deeper discussion with you about it, Sunny, because you're great at unpacking things.
Cool.
But let's save that. Let's save that for another day.
Cool. And I've got a lot of exciting things as well I want to talk. So maybe later today or tomorrow. I am going to be a little busy later this week, but we'll figure something out, Kyle. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. Really appreciate it. Hopefully this is going to signify the return of the Love and Freedom Show.
We're back
once a week. Let's just do it on the weekend or something, because we've got Patreon people, supporting us now, and I think that
big thank you to all the people who have supported on Patreon, and and to everybody who's here, dropped comments. Appreciate it. Provide any feedback, any ideas, any suggestions, critical, positive, whatever. I know we can be a little bit all over the place, and as it's kind of the natural way of it, but we aim to improve.
Yep. I'm also I've got a membership type of area that I'm starting up on my website, so I'd love to share some of that in our follow-up call. And been trying to work on my own personal domain. I've got some exciting things on the Uno coin front. Everything is coming along really nicely. Super excited about India and Bitcoin. But anyway, let's not go through all of it now. Thank you, Kyle, and go, I guess, take care of your kids, and we'll.
All right. Thanks, Sunny.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.